afternoon, ninth graders. This is Mr. Van Dyke coming to you with, I think you may have done just now, a little Google form called Confidentiality and its Limits. And I'm going to go through those answers right now. And your teacher may stop me and chime in, or you may have discussion. I'm not sure how that's going to work. But in any event, confidentiality is a word. And in case people don't know exactly what it means, I'm guessing there was discussion about that. If there was any confusion, confidentiality means that what's said between two people stays between those two people. It doesn't go anywhere else. And actually, that's essentially the hallmark of school counseling is confidentiality. Hallmark of any counseling is you're supposed to be in a confidential setting. However, there are some rules, regs, laws, and things that kind of chop into that a little bit at times. And there are some things that cannot be held confidential. Just legally, they cannot. If somebody tells me something or one of your teachers something, or even one of the aides, if you tell them those things, some of those things have to be told to someone else. They have to be brought somewhere further. So we're going to go through what those things might be and what you think they are and what they might be. So I got the answers from last year's group. We had a lot of the same questions, so I put those answers out there. And the number one that you guys were asked, it said if in a counseling setting we learned about a student vaping regularly, what would have to happen there? And the truth is, even though 76% here said they agree, the truth is that does not have to be shared. If it's shared in the counseling setting, that is a private matter and does not have to be shared on. Okay. Second question is, what about alcohol? What about alcohol? Is that required to report? And again, very similarly, the answers here. And I suppose it is illegal and it's against the athletic code and all those things. However, in a counseling setting, that is not something that has to be shared, even though 84% of last year's people felt that was a yes. That again is something that can be held confidential. So vaping, alcohol, and drugs. How about learning about illegal drugs would be required to report? Now that one's tricky. That one, the answer here, the group said 96%. Well, yeah, illegal drugs you got to report. Well, illegal drugs is again kind of a moving target a little bit. We've got things like there are some things that are illegal one year and then they're legal the next. In some states, marijuana is legal all over the place. But in essence, the alcohol and illegal drug situation both really fall into the same category. There is a good faith clause. What that means is that people in the helping professions cannot get in trouble for reporting, and they cannot get in trouble for not reporting. They basically can use their own judgment on that and decide how much danger there is in the situation. So, and I know that might sound weird to you because 96% said yes, of course you have to. The truth is, we'd like to keep confidentiality in place as much as possible. And the reason for that is not because we condone any of this stuff. We're going to get into a little bit of stuff later on that's maybe even a little bit more awkward for you guys to talk about if there's any discussion. But if a counselor or a teacher or helper of any sort is going to go run and blow things up as soon as you tell them something, we know it's going to happen. Nobody's going to tell you anything. That's just the way it is. So as long as there's relative safety involved, as long as it's deemed a safe situation, it's not imminent danger, there's good faith. In some settings, we'd have the choice. Illegal drugs, because there's a vast difference with illegal drugs. If somebody, you heard somebody took 2 tokes of marijuana, that's one thing. If you heard somebody did large amounts of cocaine, that's a totally different thing. So it does depend on the degree of danger involved, the person's life and safety, and our judgment on that. And if there is a lot of danger involved, we feel there's imminent threat to possibly even life, yes, we have to pass that on. But there's judgment in that. So, okay, next one. Classroom teacher has the same reporting requirements as a counselor with regard to physical abuse. That is absolutely true. Anyone who hears about physical abuse, that is 100% true. In fact, physical abuse of any nature. Teachers, aides, janitors all have the same reporting requirements. If a student acknowledges cutting, a counselor or teacher would need to file a report. That is not correct. But it is often the case. Again, cutting is certainly going to make any adult in the building uncomfortable. Certainly, they're not going to want to see a young person cutting. At the same time, if I asked you in your classroom right now, how many of you honestly know somebody at one time or another who has cut? There'd be a lot of hands go up probably. I would guess more than half. So it's also not a terribly rare thing. So the deal is, if there's imminent threat, the words are imminent threat to self and others, imminent significant threat to self and others. Imminent means right now, imminent means very soon, and significant threat where it could cause severe injury or death, then we are required to file a report. And again, there's vast difference. We've seen cutting situations. I've seen them where somebody, you could barely tell there was an attempt to even cut at all. It's more like a scratch. And I've seen some things that were deep and in blood dripping tremendously. So depends on the situation. It's a situational thing. But if it's 50-50, very likely teacher counselor is going to move that on to someone else because they're not going to take a chance. Okay. Now we're into the area that gets a little bit more uncomfortable sometimes, or awkward for people to talk about. But these are the sexual activity questions. They do have to get brought up. I think you have the right to know everything as far as what is confidential and what's not. So we're gonna hit it all here. Sexual activity involving 18 or 17-year-old would have to be reported. Not the case. The actual law is anything under the age of 16 is mandated reporting. Actually, anything under the age of 16 is also a felony, which is the highest crime level in the law. So you could get punished very severely. So anything involving a 15-year-old of sexual activity, 15 or anything younger, has to be reported. Could be a felony. I'm not saying it's going to get prosecuted that way. And so interestingly, if there's activity between a 15-year-old and a 15-year-old, and again, not condoning this, I hope it never happens, to be honest, but 15-year-old and 15-year-old, if there's any activity, that is actually a felony both ways. So got the wrong cop on the wrong day, things could blow up pretty bad for both of those people. So that's just the case. But that's important to know. A lot of people don't know that the magic number is really 15. The magic number where it really makes a big legal difference is 15. Yes, an 18-year-old is an adult. An 18-year-old can get tried as an adult, so there's a difference on possible punitive situation there. But 16 and 17-year-old is not mandated reporting. Okay. There are some exceptions to that. Exceptions to that are if anything is forcible of any nature, if it was non-consensual, then that's mandated reporting. If there's a vast age difference, a big age difference between the two, the law doesn't say what big means. I would assume that a 28-year-old and a 17-year-old would be a big age difference. I don't know exactly what the number is, but it says big age difference, forcible of nature, or the person was not capable of consent. I guess we could think of somebody, maybe some students that you know around school. If you know Mr. O'Fallon, very nice guy. He works in a classroom where people are sometimes have a little bit larger challenges. And if they're in the challenge to the point where they wouldn't be able to consent, the mental capacity is not there, then that would also be mandated reporting. Okay. Reporting means telling the principal or law enforcement. Actually, reporting for us means telling law enforcement or child protective services. So the principal it doesn't get us off the hook, doesn't get a teacher off, doesn't get myself off. It needs to move on to one of those two places. Okay, we hit this up before. Sexual activity involving a 17-year-old and a 16-year-old would need to be reported. I would prefer that it didn't happen at all. But that is not the case. Mandated reporting is 15 or under, or those exceptions that I named. Okay, and obviously the one at the very bottom, 16 and 15-year-old would legally have to be reported. Interesting. The drug and alcohol people all thought had to be reported, but the sexual thing they didn't feel as strongly about. But yes, anything with a 15-year-old, if a staff member finds out about it, that is mandated reporting. So if you have any further questions, you could email me. You could ask teacher in your room. Your teacher may have a good idea of the answers. But sometimes there are some misconceptions. I thought you guys had the right to know. The other thing I'm going to say in closing is, if there's ever a situation, whether talking to a teacher, a counselor, an aide, a secretary, whatever, and you're not sure if it's going to need to be reported or not, I got two thoughts with that. First of all, always err on the side of safety. So if you're talking about a friend and you're worried about them hurting themselves, and you think somebody might be able to help, even if your friend's going to be mad at you, it is best to report or to tell someone, so that somebody can intervene, because we certainly don't want anything severe happening to any of you or your friends or anything like that. Okay. The second thing is, if it's not of that nature, but you're not sure if something's going to blow up, you could just ask the person on the front end. You could say, "Hey, Mr. Vandehei, if somebody told you something like this, would you have to report it?" And I would give you the honest answer, and you decide how you wanted to move on with that. Again, hopefully erring on the side of safety of all involved, but that's a decent way to front end it if you're not sure, so you don't get blindsided by something that blows up when you didn't intend it to. So that's it on confidentiality. If your teachers have anything to add or discuss, or if you guys have any questions for them, just let them know. If you have any email questions for me, kick them out to me, and I'll do the best I can to answer them fairly quickly. Thank you very much.